Hi there, it's Soph and welcome to another episode of Inkling TV, and today I want to talk to you about a topic that's relevant to absolutely everyone, and that's loneliness. Loneliness is something that impacts all of us at some point in our life, but it's fast becoming an epidemic in the fast-paced and disconnected world that we live in. I was inspired to do this episode for three reasons. Firstly, I was recently contacted by a dear friend who courageously shared with me that he's suffering a bad case of loneliness. Now, often we think of loneliness being something that an old grandma living on her own suffers from. Now, you look at this particular friend of mine, he's super smart, has a ton of really close relationships with friends and family, has what most people would see as a highly desirable life. He's got a successful career, he rarely has a night free to himself because he's out doing all these amazing, wonderful, fun things with his life. This does make you pause and think, but why? Why is this happening for him? And the why relates to my second reason I wanted to do this episode. And I recently saw Bernard Salt speak, and he was actually saying that he thinks one of the biggest challenges that we're going to face in Australia in the next 20 years is loneliness. Not just for our aging population, but across all ages. And this is because we're spending less time together, mostly due to our fast-paced lifestyle and the fact that we're glued to our technology every moment of the day. We're living in more isolated living arrangements, and we're also putting on these crazy expectations of ourselves to be happy and fulfilled all the time. So my third reason is also my tip for how to deal with loneliness. Recently, I was working with a group of leaders who had all been made redundant, and they were also courageous and brave in sharing with myself and each other that they were feeling very alone in responding to their redundancy, wanting to put on this big, strong, brave face to the world that they were fine and they had it all together, when really they were the exact opposite of that. They were really interested when I shared the most recent research on human emotions. So across all cultures and nationalities, you can actually break down emotions into 7 core emotions: anger, disgust, contempt, fear, sadness, surprise, and happiness. What hits most people about this list is that 5 out of those 7 emotions are actually negative. And the 2 remaining ones, well, surprise could be anything not necessarily positive, and that leaves happiness as the only positive emotion. So what this tells us is that we've actually been hardwired to experience negative emotions. It's part of the human experience. There is so much shame associated in our culture with feeling lonely. We live in this world of social media where it's always, look at me, look how much fun I am having, my life's amazing. And we need to remember that feeling loneliness is different from being alone. When we tell ourselves stories about being alone, it heightens our feelings of loneliness. Now, this is something I have definitely done in my life. I have definitely got the story of I'm going to die old and alone with 5 cats that I have to fend off. And what I invite you to do is something that we teach in our programs, and that's to get really curious about the feeling. Psychologist Susan David suggests that what we need to do is to ask ourselves, what the funk? And what she means by this is actually asking yourself, what is the function of this emotion? Our emotions are there to tell us important information. We need to listen to them. It's normal, and instead of ignoring them or avoiding them, we need to build the courage to open to them and explore them. Is this feeling of loneliness a message from yourself that you need to have more fun, or to spend more time getting clear on what you want? Or is it a sign that you need to get courageous and create new connections and relationships, or to work on rebuilding the ones that you have? Moving through negative emotions requires us to do this work. That's all for this episode of Inkling. Remember to lean into those negative emotions and ask yourself, what the funk?